الرحمن يا رحيم.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Welcome back to News and Views on Salam Media. We've now crossed over to Bengaluru in India. We're going to be talking with the editor at the Cognate, based in that part of the world, obviously. He is Sheikh Zakir Hussain, and we are going to be talking about the disturbing Islamophobic tendencies that are being stirred up by the BJP party in India. Assalamu alaikum to you, Sheikh Zakir Hussain. Wonderful to have you on the show this morning. But we are obviously talking
Walaikum
about
assalam.
a very, very worrying, terrifying, and dark subject. And that, of course, is the persecution of Muslims in India. And it seems that over the last couple of years, it's gaining momentum. We also understand that there were over 250 documented gatherings promoting hate speech against Muslims across 17 Indian states in the first half of this year. Also, a new report by the Hindutva Watch has said that on average, more than one such event occurs every day. It must be very, very worrying and frightening for our Muslim brothers and sisters in India.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for giving platform to discuss such an alarming, trend that's happening in India. Yeah, I read the report, and I find the findings of the report deeply concerning. Although it's not everybody in India is aware of this. This is something that we live by, we experience almost every day. We read in the newspapers, we see, some of them unfortunately even witness this in the neighborhood, and some of them experience this firsthand, unfortunately. So it's deeply concerning, and it's reflective of the challenges that the Muslim community is facing currently in India today. The prevalence of hate speech and the propagation of anti-Muslim conspiracy theories that occurs almost every day. It has created an environment of fear. Muslims have been living in this, environment of fear for the past few years, ever since the BJP regime has come into power, and it also has real world consequences, like we see every day.
Have you personally been subject to any such hate speech, Islamophobic attacks? Bengaluru is in the south of India, if I'm correct.
Right.
What's the situation like in your part of the world or your part of India? Is it worse up north? Is it specific to certain states in India? How does this all play out? But my first question, obviously, being because you obviously are the editor of Cognate, and I'm sure that you highlight these issues on an ongoing basis. Have you been a target of Islamophobic attacks at all?
Personally, unfortunately, I have not been a target of any such attacks.
Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah. Yeah, and like you mentioned, yeah, I do live in the southern part of the country, and the report that we are talking about, it mentions that nearly 80% of the hate speech events that's been documented in this report have occurred in state which is ruled by the BJP, right? Which includes Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Gujarat, and Karnataka. I am from the state of Karnataka, and we recently had an elections where the BJP was defeated, and a different party came into power. And yes, so before the Congress party came into power, Karnataka also experienced similar hate speeches. You should also know. I mean, I think we've also spoken on your channel that the hijab controversy, the ban on hijab in schools and colleges, actually happened in Karnataka. So yeah, I mean, there was this perception, and there's still a perception that most of the hate speeches or most of the anti-Islamic, anti-Muslim events occur usually in the north of India. But Karnataka is one such example where, which we have seen, where these kind of attacks can occur anywhere in India. Even just yesterday, a couple of Muslims who were transporting beef from one state to into Karnataka from the neighboring state of Andhra Pradesh. They were transporting beef into Karnataka. They were attacked, and their vehicles were burnt by Hindutva organizations. So this is something that's prevalent in, not in many parts of the country, including the place that I am from.
Okay, disturbingly, the majority of these hate speech events also propagate dangerous conspiracy theories targeting us as Muslims, along with
Right.
explicit calls for violence, call to arms, and demands for socio-economic boycotts of the Muslim community,
Right.
suggesting also that if you're running businesses, etc., they wanting to literally close you down. Are you seeing these events playing out?
Yes, I mean, we did see this events playing out in Karnataka, for example. When the BJP was still in power, this did happen. There were calls to shut down. They were, especially this happened during the time of a Hindu festival, where Muslim businessmen were selling their goods in front of temples, and there were calls by Hindutva organization to shut down these businesses. And there were also widespread campaigns that was run, by Hindutva organization, who went from house to house, telling people that the Muslims are engaged in what they call as halal jihad. They are active campaigns against banning of halal products. Their campaigns to ban halal restaurants. There are campaigns to urging Hindus or non-Muslims not to eat from Muslim restaurants because they serve halal food, and they see that halal as a way, they term a halal food as economic jihad. So they have terms for all these things. They are calls to boycott, from giving Muslims houses on rent, which they call as land jihad. I mean, there have been campaigns. I mean, this has happened in Karnataka, which was seen as a peaceful state, which was seen as a state where these kind of incidents do not occur. So that has happened here, and there have been active calls, such calls, in many northern states, and these have been documented. And the thing that you mentioned about 250 such incidents in just the first half of this year, these are only the things that have been documented. These are incidents that have been documented. I am sure that there are multitudes of such cases which do not get documented, unfortunately. So this is quite rampant, and this is a dangerous trend. In fact, just recently, just a couple of days ago, in the Parliament of India, I'm not sure if you're aware of it, or if you come across this. In the parliament, a BJP parliamentarian, a BJP MP, called a Muslim parliamentarian as a terrorist. This is the kind of environment, this is the kind of hate mongering that has occurred in India, that no place is safe for Muslims. That's the kind of message that's been sent out from these incidents.
Sa- Sadly, we also understand that some of the purveyors of hate speech include, as you've said, chief ministers, legislators, senior leaders from the ruling BJP, and obviously parliamentarians as well. And they're giving out a very strong but very negative message. They are stirring up the masses, and I'm kind
Right.
of wondering. Narendra Modi took office as India's prime minister in 2014, and I'm sure the elections are again around the corner, and we have seen. From the time he's taken office, that there was a very slow but sure rise in hate speech against Muslims and Christians, but more directly at Muslims.
Right.
And it seems to be gaining momentum. Do you think this is due to the upcoming elections, that he possibly wants to serve another term or get another BJP member into parliament? And what do the opposition parties look like? How do they respond to these Islamophobic attacks?
Right. Like you correctly mentioned, I mean, it has gained these hate speeches or attacks against Muslims have gained momentum ever since the Modi regime came into power. But it's not like these things didn't occur before it, right? BJP has been in existence since the 1980s, and even before that, its ideological parent organization, the RSS, has been much before independence of India. So these campaigns against Muslims, the attacks against Muslim, organized, riots. Um, Rioting, these things have been there, but yeah, it has gained momentum, and there is a certain complicity, for that's been given to these organizations who indulge in this. And these hate speeches, people who indulge in these hate speeches or attacks against Muslim, they also get incentivized, right? They have examples within the BJP, right till the top, who they see as people who had once upon a time indulged in similar things, and they had risen up, they had risen up the political ladder, and they've been given plum posts, they've become ministers and chief ministers, but as a political ladder for them to climb as well. So that's one thing, right? And what about the opposition? The opposition, they do speak about this, but it's not enough. Just by speaking, just by putting up a post on social media, it's not going to contain this hate, this hatred. The hatred against Muslims is widespread. It comes right from the top. It's top down. It comes right from the highest power echelons of power till the bottom. I mean, it's spread in the people as well. And the opposition, civil society organizations, and non-Muslims who do not believe in violence. There has to be concerted efforts for all these, individuals and communities to come together to say that enough is enough. This is who, or this is not what Hinduism is, or this is not what Hindus as a community represents. Until and unless this doesn't happen, the hatred, will continue to spread. Unfortunately, this hasn't happened, right? There isn't widespread, campaigns that's been run where common people, coming out and asking for these kind of, attacks to be stopped. That hasn't happened. So this is what gives, an impunity for these organizations and for the government to indulge in these kind of attacks against the Muslim community.
I'm wondering about the international community and peacekeeping organizations like Amnesty International and other such organizations. What are you expecting from them, and what are you expecting from, international, the West and other governments? Whom do you believe could put pressure on the Modi government to start changing the narrative, to start spreading hate speech and Islamophobia in the country? Because there was a time when Hindus, Christians, and Muslims lived in relatively peaceful conditions in India.
Right. Honestly, I do not expect anything from any Western government or any government, because it hasn't actually worked with the Modi government. There was a time when people used to think that these reports coming out in the open, these for Western media talking about it or publishing reports about this, would put pressure on the Modi government, and these attacks would come down. But that hasn't been the case. The Modi government has been in power since 2014, and it's likely to come back to power again in 2024. Because I think you had asked this question also. I forgot to talk about it. So 2024, it looks, as of today, it does looks like the Modi government will come back to power again. So in all these years, I have not seen any kind of pressure actually working on the Modi government, except for here, small incidents here and there. India today is an economic power, right? And this is and it understands its power in the world economy. It understands its standing, and I do not think that any kind of pressure, and the world does not want to upset India. And there are not many countries who want to upset India. We have seen this recently, in the case of India and Canada, where Sikh separatist leader was killed, and the Canadian government has alleged that the Indian government was directly involved in his killing. And India, in response, um, sent off, an ambassador. It has cancelled. A lot of it has put restrictions on people traveling from India to Canada. This is not something that we would have witnessed 20 years ago, 30 years ago. The India of that time was quite different. The India of Modi is quite different. I do not see it, as succumbing to any kind of such pressure, because, like I said, it sees itself as an economic powerhouse that countries cannot ignore. Most of the multinational companies have their existence in India. Most of these multinational companies, the biggest consumer base is in India. So, people are, governments of the world are wary of upsetting India, putting any kind of pressure. I mean, sure, they are, the Western, when we talk about the Western world, the Western media, is in the, in a sort of way, is independent from the governments, and they do talk about it. But I do not see, that actually putting any kind of pressure or acting as a deterrence for these attacks. If anything, this has only increased. The attacks have only increased. I really do not know what to expect from any country.
I guess the bottom line is money,
Right.
power, and control, and that's the bottom line. And thus, I guess the international community will not be particularly interested in speaking up on behalf of the rights of the Muslims of India. In closing, then, two other questions. We do know that Bollywood is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and I'm kind of wondering. Does the BJP has its clutches into that industry as well, because they can put out very, very strong messages by way of the type of films they produce. Do you think that they help, or do they further incite the flames of Islamophobia by the types of movies they put out? I'm not a Bollywood fan. I don't watch Indian movies, but I do know that it has a lot of clout. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, not just Bollywood. I mean, India has multiple linguistic film industry. Bollywood or Hindi film industry is just one of them. And yeah, movies do have a clout, but the movies so far haven't been used the movies that have come in ever since the Modi government has. A lot of movies have actually, incites violence. Movies like the Kashmir Files or the Kerala Story, and there is a slew of films that are in production right now, which outrightly are propaganda, anti-Muslim, anti-Islamic propaganda films. If anything, Bollywood or other film, and specifically Bollywood, has been used as an instrument to incite. Some of the movies have been used as an instrument to incite violence, to create conspiracy theories about Muslims in the country. So the BJP has, there are a lot of producers, writers, actors, and directors within the realm of the Bollywood world, the movie industry, who are sympathetic towards the Hindutva cause, who are sympathetic towards Modi and the BJP regime. And they've actually, like I mentioned, hatred in India is incentivized, right? And hatred actually sells. I mean, all the movies that I listed out have been immensely successful. They have raked in millions and millions of dollars, and and this has become a new formula for a lot of people. I mean, people whose careers were ended, they have started using this formula to come back into prominence, to come back to gain their lost glory in the film industry. So that's how it's been used. Unfortunately, it has not been used to speak out against the regime, to speak out against this hatred. Unfortunately, this hasn't happened. And because every time there has been any kind of attempt to speak out against the regime, even the slightest of attempt from actors associated with Bollywood, they have been demonized, they have been called out, they've been called as anti-Hindu. So people associated with the film industry are do not want to take a risk of being called as anti-Hindu, because they see that if you speak against against the government, you would be tagged as anti-Hindu, as anti-Hindutva, as anti-India, and your movies may not work. And that has actually happened. I mean, there have been examples of people whose movies haven't been worked, whose movies have failed at the box office because of the concerted effort by these right-wing organizations.
I think it'd be interesting in another show to look at the psychology behind what causes hatred by one group against the other. What sort of fears are embedded in these people that there is so much of outright hatred against different people of the same nation, but have a different ideology or different religion. What creates this hatred? I'd love to unpack that in a future program. But Brother Sheikh
Absolutely.
Zakir Hussain, wonderful talking with you. I'm so sad, really saddened by hearing what's playing out against the Muslims of India. We make ongoing dua, inshallah, that your conditions does improve. And
Ameen.
till the next time, you stay safe with all of your loved ones and the rest of the Muslims in India, inshallah.
Ameen.
Take care and
Inshallah.
salamu alaikum to you.
Walaikum salam. Thank you again for having me. Walaikum
An
salam.
absolute pleasure. It's exactly 2 after 9 o'clock. News and views on Salam Media. Standing by with the bulletin of the morning is Zai Jadwat, our news correspondent here at Salam Media.